The Hori Fighting Commander Octa is a huge letdown for fighting gamepad players. It's because the D-pad feels stiff, it's hard to hit diagonals. For some reason, Hori decided to use a pressure-sensitive app system, which is way over the top and totally unnecessary. It's just in general a huge step down from its previous version, the Hori Fighting Commander 4, which for me personally is still the best D-pad for fighting games even now. Recently in a Snake Eyes stream he reviewed pad controllers for fighting games, and he talked about how bad the D-pad is on the Hori Octa. Then he mentioned that he saw a post on Reddit and he was thinking about trying to mod his Octa D-pad with clicky switches. So I searched out this Reddit post and I found it. So big shout outs to queerstarfleetoffice for figuring out this clever and simple mod. So if you like this mod, shoot over to their Reddit post and give them an upvote. So I wanted to make a video showing the steps, how to break down the controller, and just generally how to do this mod. There'll be instructions all through the video. Let's get into the mod. So here's a breakdown of what you're going to need. You're going to need firstly one Hori Octa controller. You're going to need a little screwdriver, apparently sized 0, 00 or 000 works as well. A pair of scissors. Next you're going to need a clicky sticky D-pad membrane. So on the Reddit post he links a product which looks exactly like what I'm holding here. I got this from AliExpress. The first time I installed it, it didn't work very well, so I pulled it out. I had an old Xbox controller lying around. I took the membrane out of that and I installed it in this controller. After that it worked perfectly. If you're going to buy one of these membranes, I'd advise to get one that looks like this. It's black. I can't speak for the link on the Reddit post. Apparently that one worked well for him, but the one that worked well for me was black. That's all I know. So I've ordered another set of black sticky membranes from AliExpress, so I'll update in the comments later if those are good. I might even go on the Reddit post, link in there as well. Okay, so now that we have covered everything that you'll need, let's start to break open the controller and get into the mod. Firstly, you're going to unscrew all 8 black screws. So yeah, that's total 8 black screws. Set them aside in a neat little pile. When it comes time to pop the back shell off for the first time, you'll notice it feels really tight and it's gonna feel scary to pop it off. But don't worry, you'll need to use quite a bit of force to yank it open. This is normal, just yank it. Even if the little clips break, even when you close it up again later after the mod, those little clips don't even do anything. It's the screws that hold it all together. Next, on the PCB, you are going to pop out this little zigzaggy power supply cord. Next, you are going to unscrew these 3 little silver screws so that you can take off the PCB. The shoulder or trigger PCBs are in little slots, so just sort of pinch them and slide them out. Now you're going to unplug the red, this is the cord for the D-pad module, which is hiding underneath the PCB. You'll see it very soon. And I missed one of the silver screws, so I'm just undoing that now. Now with everything unplugged and unscrewed, you'll be able to remove the entire PCB from the shell. So you'll note that the touchpad is still plugged in. I'm sure unplugging it would be helpful, but previously when I've done DualShock 4 mods, I've had great difficulty replugging these ribbons back in. They're a real pain in the neck. So for the purpose of this mod, I just left it plugged in. Up to you though if you want to unplug it and then mess around with plugging it back in later. Another thing to note is that some of the face buttons will very easily pop out if you accidentally tilt the case the wrong way, so just be careful. Try not to tilt the case too much. If you do, like I did, just make sure to either replace the buttons as you go or put them to the side. The same goes for the left trigger. I seem to knock this one out almost every time. Just remember to put everything back in before you close it up again at the end. Now you're going to unscrew the two little silver screws in the PCB for the D-pad. So these screws are the same as the other 3 screws from the main PCB. So just add them to your little pile, making 5 total silver screws. So don't worry if you mix them up, they are all the same size. You'll now be able to work on the D-pad PCB by itself. Now the D-pad membrane has these little rubber feet, so you'll grab the edge of the membrane and you'll sort of pull it and pop the feet out of the little holes in the PCB. This exposes the conductors that are very conveniently labelled. QueerStarFleetoffice notes in their Reddit post that these conductors appear to be pressure sensitive rather than simple on and off switches. It makes complete sense because you can adjust the sensitivity of the D-pad in the Hori app. I completely disagree with this approach. It's clear that Hori has forgotten what a good D-pad feels like, so we are at the mercy of their software. This is exactly what happened in Japan with the pre-release of the Hori Octa Pro. The pad was unusable until they made a sensitivity adjustment in their app. Everybody was complaining about it on Twitter, so I really hope that Hori can learn from their mistakes. Anyway, the good news is that this mod adjusts that silly setting and it makes the D-pad feel more like the switches are just simple on and off switches. So rant over, let's continue with the mod. So here's the reason why you'll need to cut this membrane, is you'll notice that it doesn't line up with the conductors on the PCB. So you'll need to cut out each little metal section individually. You don't need to be too precise, but you'll want to make sure not to cut them too big, otherwise they will overlap the other one. This will make more sense when you go to do it yourself. For example, these are too big. If I was to stick these on, the plastic would be overlapping and you wouldn't be able to make contact with the metal to the conductor as you should. It would be in the way basically, but as I said, it'll make a lot more sense when you go to do it. Okay, this is probably the most important part of the mod. Now just take careful note that these little gold parts on the conductors, right? So what you're going to want to do is the little tabs on the metal part, you want to make contact with the gold. That's your key, but you also want to make it that the membrane, when it's positioned over the little clicky part, when it presses down, it's going to click it. So it's going to take a bit of time, but just try and get this placement right. The worst case scenario is that you'll miss 1 or 2 of them. This happened to me on the first time I did it, in which case you're going to have to open the case up and you're going to have to do the process again, which is quite annoying. Here's the finished product after you finish sticking everything down. As I mentioned before, just have another once over before you decide to close everything up again. Make sure that that metal tab is in contact with the gold and that it is going to be positioned once the membrane goes over top and the D-pad goes over top, so that when you press on the D-pad it's going to click that clicky part. You're going to take your membrane, you're going to take the little rubber legs and you're going to poke them through the little holes in the PCB, and then you're just going to sort of flip it around, grab the legs and pull them through. Now once the membrane's over the top, you got to give it the little click test. There's 2 little plastic stems, which makes putting the D-pad back in quite easy. So just line up the stems with the holes in the PCB and you can't go wrong. Then you're going to screw in 2 of those silver screws that you put aside before. Line up the PCB with the holes and jiggle it into place, and then you're going to re-screw the remaining 3 silver screws. slide the shoulder PCs back into their slots and just make sure that the little rubber membrane is lined up under the trigger, and just give it a click to make sure that it's depressing correctly. Another one of the little buttons that kept falling off for me each time were the PC mode and lock feature switches. So again, just a reminder, don't forget to replace all the little buttons that fall out as you go before you close everything up again. And don't forget to replug in the D-pad. Line up the squiggly power supply cord again as it was, and then pop it back into its little tab. And then finally put the back plate on and re-screw in all the 8 little black screws that you put aside at the start. So I gotta say, after installing this mod, in game you can really feel the difference. The switches aren't loud because they're softened by the rubber membrane, but you can definitely feel the click. It really drastically improves the D-pad. I had a few matches with my buddy in CVS2, felt super good. So I tried some wave dashing and some perfect electrics in Tekken, some while standing 2s and some while standing twin pistons, and it felt really great. Actually, just as I was finishing this video up, my Hori Octa Pro arrived in the mail, so it was actually great timing. It was really cool that I could sort of compare the two, and I wasn't expecting it, so I've just kind of thrown this in at the last second for the video. After comparing the two, I would say that the Hori Octa original with the mod does feel better than the standard Hori Octa Pro D-pad. It just feels a bit more responsive with the clicks. In saying that, I do think that the Hori Octa Pro is a slight improvement of the Hori Octa original D-pad when it's not modded, but it's not really that much better. Basically, the reason I wanted to make this video, I think this mod has a lot of potential. It's got the potential to make some pads that are not so good for fighting games good. I also think that this mod may put an end to that classic fighting game pad player dilemma. You know, when D-pads get mushy, people tend to just get a new controller. I personally haven't had this because when that happens, I just replace the membrane. If you put these switches in, they're going to last a lot longer than a standard membrane, so you won't have to nearly do this as often. When my delivery arrives, I'm definitely going to install this mod into the new Hori Octa Pro. I've got high hopes that after installing this mod, that I think that the Hori Octa Pro might be the D-pad that we've all been waiting for. Just chuck in at the end a little disclaimer for Rush G, who was the inspiration for this video. So I think that the steps for this mod and the Hori Octa original should apply for the Hori Octa Pro. I think it's going to be almost exactly identical, except I did notice that the Hori Octa Pro has tri-wing screws, and there's probably also a battery somewhere inside to contend with. But other than that, I'm anticipating about the same process when my parts finally arrive for this mod. So thank you for taking time to watch, and good luck with your mod, everyone. I hope you get the D-pad that you've all been looking for. See you!